So if you want, that's fine with me, but if you want to remain anonymous, then please let me know and I'll make sure it's laid out. Thank you.
Because worried about this chair catching
What if I put this over the back of it?
I'll get burnt.
To be honest, that will probably die down. Just put some products in it. We'll go
The door's going to cost tomorrow. I'll check them out.
I'm so sorry, I'm a bit shut my head. Could you just get me attention to the staff?
I think you're all good upstairs.
Hi, we'll just let you know that we're live streaming here, and when you face this way, I can see your face, and I just wanted to check that you're happy with that. Are you good? Are you okay with that? Thank you so much.
As long as the viewers are okay.
I think that was the thing that was going
Hi, hello. Thanks all for coming. So we've got some monologues here that were written by Palestinian youth in 2010 in collaboration with Ashtar Theatre. And they put a call out 2 weeks ago asking for a global reading of the Gaza Monologues, and we decided we would like to read some of them. So the monologues that we have here are all those by teenagers, written in 2010. I want to just play a message to you beforehand. This is from Iman, who is the director of Ashtar Theatre.
Hello, old and new friends of Ashtar Theatre and Palestine. I would like to thank you all for being with us on this call. I am Iman On, co-founder of Ashtar Theatre, creator of the Gaza Monologues. When we did the Gaza Monologues back in 2010, we thought that that would be the first and last war on our people in Gaza. But alas, it did not work out. Therefore, there was another war, and another, and another, and it continued on and on and on for the last 17 years. Moment, with all that you have seen in the media, and all that you have done in your countries, in your cities, still, nothing on the ground is being changed. We, as a small company in Palestine, were trying to keep the voice of the people of Palestine and of the people of Gaza heard. And therefore, we are calling upon you that these monologues, they do not only go into your hearts and minds, but that these monologues will become a paveway for a real change, a real pressure on your governments to take action that will bring justice and long-lasting solution for a sovereign state for Palestine, that the world will all agree to have and will all recognize the state of Palestine. Because through peace and with peace, we can all live regular people. Thank you for being with us on this call, and we are all together to save our humanity.
So the first one that I would like to read, this is been made available to us just in the last few days from Ashtar Theatre, and it's a monologue that's written by Ali Abu Yassin, and he wrote this. He's a director at Ashtar Theatre. And he wrote this on the 5th of November this year, 2023. From Gaza to Shakespeare. Help me, my friend. How can you be present after more than 500 years? You jump before my eyes with every image and every cry. I hear you screaming with the children and sharing the crying with the mothers, dressed in black like Hamlet's father, emerging from under the rubble carrying a child's toy. You appear from above the church, bells ringing them, warning of their destruction, standing above a minaret where nothing remains of the mosque except it. Trying to help those who fell in a hospital courtyard. You are present everywhere, as if a group of ghosts has split up to force the world to stop the massacres and ethnic cleansing that are happening in Gaza. This is not a war, but something else. When the witches predicted that Burnham Woods would move to King Macbeth's palace, it is as if you are predicting that Gaza City will move to the sea after all this destruction and death. There is not a house or building left that is not destroyed along with its residents. It is as if you predicted that Gaza would move to the sea. But when the forest moved, the soldiers won. Will it be the destroyed buildings laden with cement and iron and the thousands of bodies still under the rubble of children, women, the elderly and the fathers, all those pure souls that will inevitably be swept into the sea after the end of the war, as is the custom of all buildings after every war? But the difference this time is that the buildings are mixed with flesh and blood and will be baptized by the sea, as if the price of our freedom, which we struggled for more than 70 years, was this baptism towards freedom. I do not know why the saying of the occupation Prime Minister Rabin comes back to mind. How I wish I would wake up to find Gaza swallowed by the sea. Was everything that happened planned? Did you, Shakespeare, know that the price of freedom is the movement of cities and forests, and that still water is stagnant water? Yes, if this is the price of our freedom and dignity, we will pay it with appreciation, respect, and a desire to go towards the sun. Was aviation included in the moment as well? The body of my friend, Majed, flew 100 metres into the air. His body ended up on the balcony of an apartment, torn apart by a missile that killed him together with 120 members of his family. The war was not a Midsummer Night's Dream, but rather a terrifying, weeping nightmare. The main players of the show were some clowns, including aeroplanes, tanks and battleships, throwing lava at children. How could you, William Shakespeare, write us in Romeo and Juliet and warn us of the ugliness of conflict and war between cousins, and that everyone will pay the price? The vision has changed, my friend. It has become much more the sound of rockets. The sound of rockets that makes the heart jump in fear. The smell of gunpowder and carcinogenic smoke forcibly penetrates the lungs. Phosphorus bombs, which are banned internationally, burn the green and dry land. Seeing your loved ones in pieces, your heart that is torn 1,000 times every day as if it were a piece of rubber. Get up, Shakespeare. Help me, my friend. I'm really tired. Resist with your wise pen, full of love, joy, revolution, humanity, hope, and freedom openly. Maybe we will all become brothers under that blue sky. And now we will hear monologues written by the Gaza youth, teenagers, written in 2010.
Mohammed Qarsan, born 1995, age 15, from Al-Saftawi Street. My grandmother and I were home alone. She was telling me stories about the days of our country, funny stories and sad ones, but she never told me a complete story because she always had to go to the bathroom halfway through. My grandma spends half her time in the room and half her time in the bathroom. My parents come back at 10:30 at night and went to sleep straight away. I couldn't sleep. I was lying on my bed awake, writing my homework, and I heard the noise of a distant explosion. I went to my parents' room and took the radio to hear the news. I woke my father up and told him, "I've heard the sound of a strong explosion." And he said, "Be quiet and go back to bed. It's just the sound of aimless shooting." Anyway, I went back to bed and the electricity was out, and suddenly there was a huge explosion that shocked my world. I pulled my blanket and covered my face, and something had fell on me. I raised the blanket off of me with all the strength that I had, and it was the frame of the window that had fell on me. The blanket was full of glass, and our entire home was full of black smoke. It was the day they hit the workers' union right next to our house. But that's not the point. No, the point is the stupid things that happened and which I can't find an explanation for. I mean, first, the world was on fire and we all felt we would die, but my grandmother was looking for her false teeth. She was afraid that if she died, people would find out she had no teeth, like they didn't already know. Second, the house was full of smoke, but my father lit a cigarette and smoked, as if we needed more smoke. And third, my uncle called to make sure we were okay, and my father told him that we're all fine, thank God, but that all the windows of the house were broken except one, and my father told my father to go break it, to which he did. And I don't know why I'm telling this story. All I know is that we're living in a cage, a prison, like an encaged bird who wants to come out, but he's besieged. Kids are dying in front of their mother's eyes. Hearts are crying for them, screaming in the loudest voice, but no one hears. No one's heart softens, and no one seems to care.
Sajud Abu Hassanen, born 1995, aged 15, in Ashtar Theatre. What I love most in Gaza is people's kindness and simplicity, and what I hate most is the political party fanaticism. I feel that there's a contradiction between all this love and kindness that people have and this evil that controls the surface. If it was in my hands, I'd solve the problem of the Palestinian division tomorrow. In the war, they assassinated a big Hamas leader. All the media in the world covered it, but the whole world was in one valley and we were in the other. Because Modi and Saluma, my young brothers, and my dad had gone to our land that's next to that Hamas leader. We called them 1,000 times, and as usual, the Jawal mobile landlines wouldn't go through, which stressed us out even more. Mum started pacing the balcony like a small bird from whom they'd taken her children. She imagined that the balcony would somehow rescue Modi and Saluma and Dad, and I was really stressed. I started crying, and I went down to my aunt. My aunt started soothing me. She lied to me and told me that she had called them and spoken to them. I knew that she had not talked to them, but she was holding me and crying, and I was crying too. When I went up to our house, I saw that Mum was still pacing the balcony. I forgot to tell you at the time that Modi and Saluma are 5 and 7 years old. They used to sleep in my arms and my soul was connected to them. I felt at the time that my soul was going to escape and die. And honestly, only then I felt that there was a war in Gaza, because I was busy with the computer all the time. And that day was the first time that I lived the war. An hour later, there was knocking on the door of our house. And Dad came back with Modi and Saluma. As much as I loved them, this was the first time I felt how much they were really dear to me, how much I couldn't bear to be parted from them. I put them on my lap and kissed them like it was the first time I'd held them, and Mum stopped pacing the balcony, and it was the first time I felt that she'd loved Dad like that. After the war, I started thinking, why are we like that? Out of the whole world, they took our land and threw us out of our homes. And because we're defending ourselves, all this happens to us. There's no water, no electricity, no phones, no petrol. What are we to the world? Aren't we human?
Hannah Hilo, born in 1995, 15 years old, Al Yarmouk Street. We were sitting at home a day before the war erupted, at 10:30 at night. My father, mother, brothers and myself, flicking through the TV channels, news, art, sports, nonsense, common sense. Then the phone rang. I answered. Yes, Lana, yes, tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning we'll go to school together. Okay, dearest, I'll wait for you. And she came, indeed, at 6:30 in the morning. All the way we were arguing who studied more. Anyway, we got to school and went into the exam, then went home. When Lana laughed, the whole world laughed with her. I felt she was the person who loved me the most in the whole world. Once I forgot to do my maths homework, she took my exercise book and I took hers, and she was punished instead of me. While going home from school, we heard the sound of planes, followed by an explosion. I was very scared. Lana came close to me, held my hand, looked at me and told me, smiling, "Don't be scared. Death can't part us." When she was talking to me, suddenly the street was filled with smoke and with sounds of rockets and explosions, one after the other. She held me tight. A moment later, she fell from my hands and the smoke faded. I looked at my shirt and it was full of blood. I thought I was injured. I started screaming. I looked at the ground and saw Lana down on it, looking at me, laughing and crying at the same time. I held her hand and she told me, "Don't be scared. Death can't part us." And her hand slipped from mine. People gathered around us and suddenly the ambulance came wanting to take her from my arms. I fell on her and held her, and the paramedic said, "That's it. Leave her. God have mercy on her soul." I started screaming and fainted. I woke up in hospital without Lana, and this was the first time she wasn't with me. Many times in the night when I'm sitting, I wish the phone would ring and I'd hear Lana's voice again telling me, "We'll meet at 6:30.
Ali al-Hassani, born 1995, 15 years old, Al-Saftawi Street. The thing I love most about Gaza is that it's not like the other countries. Other countries have lots of problems: famine, siege, division, occupation, bombing, destruction, and death. But we have none of these. And that's why I love Gaza a lot. Especially that the sewage and the streets are clean and people love one another. Prices are cheap, everyone is happy, and the fish are healthy and don't swim in sewage. And that I will not die of hunger, poverty, or a heart attack that half of my relatives died from because of so much happiness. I want to tell you a big secret that I'm holding in my chest and itching to say since I started speaking. The secret is, I, my dear folks, am the reason for the war in Gaza. You might be surprised as to why, because I never had a dream that didn't come true. One night before the war, I dreamed that the war started and our house was bombed and everyone in it died except for me. The next day at 11:25 in the morning, the airstrikes began in Gaza. The first shock that I had in the war was when the strongest teacher in the school, the math teacher, hid under his desk in fear from the very first second. I thought, if the strongest teacher is hiding under his desk, then what about the rest of us? A lot of kids peed themselves. I started screaming. Everyone started screaming. I was screaming for my house that I was sure was destroyed, and my family, who I was sure were martyred. I went out running in the street, wanting to rush home to my family. And I waited for 2 hours for a car to come take me, but in the end I went walking. All the way I was imagining our house destroyed and my family dead. I got home and found nothing was wrong. My family were just taking the window frames off so that they wouldn't explode from the air pressure. But till today I'm scared that they will bomb our house. That's why, and you can ask my mother, I sleep with 3 mattresses underneath me so that when the bombing happens, they can absorb the shock and nothing will happen to me. I hate dreaming, but dreams are not something that we can control. I think that Ali, myself, before the war, is different from Ali after the war, who is a new person that I'm trying to discover. Before the war, I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't know the head of state from the prime minister. I never listened to news. But today, I am a political analyst. Al Jazeera this morning, midday, this evening, the harvest of the day, harvest of the week. I started following all of these programs and discussing them. I started feeling that politics and news are very important because they are what kills us and they are what gives us life. And also because I want to be the first to know if there's going to be another war. علي الحسني مواليد 1995 عمره 15 سنة من شارع الصفطاوي. أكثر شيء بحبه بغزة إنها مش زي الدول الثانية. الدول الثانية عندهم مشاكل كثيرة، مجاعات، حصار، انقسام، احتلال، قصف وتدمير وموت. أما إحنا ما عندنا أي شيء من هذا الكلام. عشان هيك بحب غزة كثير، وخصوصا إنه المجاري والشوارع نظيفة والناس بيحبوا بعض والأسعار رخيصة وكل الناس سعيدة والسمك صحي بسبحش بالمجاري. وإني أكيد مش رح أموت من الجوع أو الفقر أو جلطة من الجلطات اللي ماتوا فيها نص أقاربي من كثر السعادة. بدي أحكي لكم سر خطير كاتم عليه في صدري من أول ما بديت كلامي اليوم. السر هو إنه أنا يا جماعة الخير سبب الحرب في غزة. يمكن تستغربوا ليش؟ إنه أنا عمري ما حلمت حلم إلا وتحقق. قبل الحرب بليلة حلمت إنه قامت الحرب ودارنا انقصفت وما حدا ضل فيها طيب إلا أنا. ثاني يوم الساعة 11:25 بدأت الضربات الجوية على غزة. أول صدمة صابتني في الحرب إنه أجمد أستاذ في المدرسة، أستاذ الرياضيات، من أول ثانية نزل تحت الطاولة من الخوف. أنا فكرت إذا أجمد أستاذ تخبى تحت الطاولة إحنا إيش نسوي؟ كثير أولاد شخوا على حالهم. أنا بديت أصيح، الأولاد كلهم بيصيحوا معي. أنا كنت أصيح على بيتنا اللي متأكد إنه تدمر، وعلى أهلي اللي متأكد إنه مستشهد. طلعت أجري في الشارع بدي ألحق أهلي، بس ضليت ساعتين استنى سيارة تاخذني، وبالآخر رحت مشي طول الطريق وأنا متخيل بيتنا متدمر وأهلي ميتين. وصلت البيت لقيت فيش فيه إشي، وأهلي قاعدين بيفكوا الشبابيك عشان ما تتكسر من ضغط الهواء. بس اليوم أنا خايف يقصفوا بيتنا، عشان هيك تقدروا تسألوا أمي أنا بنام تحتي 3 فرشات، عشان لما يصير القصف الفرشات تتلقى الضربات وما يصير فيها إشي. وصرت أكره أحلم، بس الحلم مش بإيدنا. أظن إنه علي قبل الحرب اللي هو أنا غير علي بعد الحرب. إنسان جديد بحاول أتعرف عليه. قبل الحرب ما كنت أفهم في السياسة أبدا، ولا كنت أعرف رئيس دولة من رئيس الوزراء. عمري ما سمعت أخبار، بس اليوم صرت محلل سياسي. الجزيرة هذا الصباح، منتصف النهار هذا المساء، حصاد اليوم، حصاد الأسبوع، كل هذه البرامج صرت أتابعها وناقش فيها. صرت أحس إنه السياسة والأخبار مهمة كثير بحياتنا، لأنها هي اللي بتموتنا وهي اللي بتحيينا. لأنه كمان بدي أكون أول واحد بيعرف إذا راح تصير كمان حرب ولا لا.
Rim Afena, born in 1996, Al-Saftawi Street. When I was young, I used to feel that I was the happiest child in the world. But the more I grow and the more my mind grows, the more my worry grows, because I start to understand things that I did not. I started to understand the meaning of a deprived child. The thing that upsets me and makes me cry the most are children's tears. All children in the world, regardless of their nationality, religion, or colour. When I grow up, I want to be a paediatrician. And that's the hope that gives me the big push in life. Even though I'm fed up, bored, and sad, because Gaza doesn't have life anymore. Yesterday, I was sitting in school, and I heard the sound of planes. I got really scared. I wanted to run away from school. I felt I was going to die because I remembered the war. The scenes of war won't leave my mind. On the 3rd day of the war, my family was sitting together, talking about what was happening in the war. And my grandmother was reassuring us so we wouldn't be scared. We were actually calmed. Even though the sounds of rockets didn't stop, but my grandmother's voice was calming us. The phone rang. The lines never caught in the war, so when we heard the sound of the phone, we were happy. Hello? Yes? This is the Israeli Defense Army. You have 5 minutes to clear the house. It's for your own benefit. You have been warned. And I couldn't stand on my legs anymore. And everyone started yelling. My grandmother was the first one to run away. I had never seen her move so fast in my life. My dad held me and my sisters and told us not to be scared. He was pulling me to leave, but I was going to die if I didn't take my teddy bear with me. I would feel I betrayed it if I left it under the bombing. I escaped from my dad's hands and ran to my bear, took him in my arms and left. We all got away from the house and sat down and waited for 5 minutes. And that was the longest 5 minutes in history. They became 10. We felt like they were years that passed. I was in a whirlwind. Thoughts and dreams were shattering around in my head and the world was spinning, and I felt like the dream of being a doctor was very, very far away. I held the bear and remembered myself when I was small and how I always laughed. I wanted to go back to being small and stay small. I don't want to grow up. the only thing that comforted me was the love of the people who didn't leave my side for one moment. Gaza is full of love.
We're El Dieri, born 1997, 13 years old, Sabra. What I love most in Gaza is Barcelona Park. I used to go there 3 times a week. I would spend the whole day on the swings, laughing and playing with my friends. But during the war, the occupation bulldozed it and destroyed it. I went to visit the place and started crying. I remembered where I used to play and where the swings were and my laughter with my friends. I want to be a lawyer so I can defend the people that have been victimised. And you won't find more of them than in the empire of Gaza, because I feel that Gaza is 100 countries and 1.5 million presidents. The tanks got to our house at 5 in the morning. Mum started gathering things from the house and everything turned upside down in a few seconds. Everyone started yelling and carrying what they could, and we went out running in the streets, not knowing where to go. My grandmother said, "You can only go to the schools." And all schools. All schools. Our school is more beautiful than all schools. 100 of us used to sleep in one class. From the first night, I got into a fight with another girl about 1/4 meter and who was going to sleep in it. And I don't know how we slept on top of each other, like a mountain of old, discarded, forgotten clothes. 3 days later, we went back to the house and the neighbourhood. But a lot of things had changed. The neighbourhood wasn't the same, and the people weren't the same either. The biggest change in me is that I became a gossip. Honestly, I can't hold my tongue. Our theatre trainer told me that this is normal in Gaza. All Gaza gossips about each other. But the difference between me and the people in Gaza is that they don't admit that they are gossiping. Well, I admit in my full mental capacities that I am a gossip. Sometimes I find no one to gossip about, so I gossip about myself.
Tamer Najam, born 1993, 17 years old, Ash Sheikh Radwan. Gaza is a matchbox, and we're the matches inside it. When the war started on Gaza, all the media was focused on us. Al Jazeera, Al Arabiya, and all the satellite channels were focused on Gaza, and the occupation wouldn't leave us alone. The whole world became busy with Gaza and what's happening inside it. Suddenly, Al Jazeera wrote, "Breaking news, death of Mohammed al-Hindi." And it wasn't normal, because that Mohammed, he's my uncle, my mother's brother. It was the first time I see the screaming move from live broadcast on TV to the house. Screaming and yelling and tears, all of it mixed up together, and it moved from our house to the street, and my mum fainted. A while later the phone rang. It was my second uncle calling to tell us that Mohammed was martyred. He didn't know that the whole world knew the news. This television is awful. Before a person is shot, as the bullet is on its way to his chest, the television has already broadcast the news. But these days, all the channels are sitting idle, praying to God to send another war on Gaza so they have work. Anyway, We all started crying bitterly for my uncle and remembering him and talking about him. We kept talking about him for a long time. Then it started getting less because death became normal in Gaza. After the war, I stopped caring whether I live or die. After what we saw in the war, I don't care about anything. Because I think each day I live is the biggest bonus. And all the life I live after the war is extra because I could have died at any moment. You know, I'm sick of the city, even though I love it. And I'm sick of the people too. Sometimes I feel that I know the 1.5 million who are in Gaza. There's nothing new. The same day is repeated every day. I feel like traveling, like changing scene and faces. As soon as I wake up every morning, I see the electricity pole in my face. I wish I'd wake up one day and not find it there. Each day, Abu Ibrahim stands at the door of the supermarket, and Abed, the bean seller, is selling his beans, and Abu el-Abed is sitting at the door of his house, afraid that his house would run away. Ibrahim is standing with Hassan. I know the taxi drivers one by one. I know who takes you to the city and who goes to the beach. It's soul draining. The only hour that's different in my life is the one when I come to theatre practice. It became my work and mission. I wait for it impatiently. Without the theatre, I would have gone crazy. When I grow up, I want to be a big actor. I've loved acting since I was a kid, but any institution that I used to go to when I was a kid threw me out a few days later. But this time, it's different.
Ahmad Taha, born 1996, 14 years old, Al-Duraj. All my life I thought Gaza was the biggest and most beautiful city in the world. But once I went with my dad to Jaffa and came back with my head spinning. After that, I felt that Gaza was the size of a needle hole and wasn't beautiful. And it keeps getting smaller and worse. No one can breathe. And on top of it all, we're not allowed to travel. Every time I walk the streets of Gaza, I suffocate. Jaffa's picture won't leave my mind. I ask myself, where are we? We're so far from the rest of the world. That's why I'm always at the sea. Because I feel it's not from Gaza. I keep writing my name on the sand, and the waves come and erase it. Before the war, I wanted to be an electronic engineer. But since the war, I hate going to school. I feel I won't be anything important in my life. And even if I will, so what? It's all the same in this city. Am I going to be the prettiest flower on a garbage heap? When the bombing began, all the schools in Gaza went home, except us. The principal wouldn't let us leave. The kids freaked out, and in a second, they went out into the schoolyard. The weird thing is that I'm in the Zaytuna school, the one near the Ministry of Passports, which got hit first. With the first hit, a piece of rocket flew onto the biggest tree in the school and sliced it in two like a sugar cane. As soon as we saw that, no one stayed in school. Students, teachers, or the principal. We fled for our lives. I thought the only martyr that I would see in the war is the tree. But as soon as I got home, there were 4 martyrs in our street, as though waiting for me to say goodbye to them. When I'm done with that, 3 more martyrs from the same family in our streets arrived. As soon as we buried them and returned, our neighbor's house, 2 houses down the street, was bombed by the army. And the house was wiped off the ground. Everyone died. I felt most sad for the little girls. I felt the war was targeting me alone, out of all the people in Gaza. All day I'd be seeing martyrs. In the Shifa hospital, I saw a sight that I will never forget. Hundreds of corpses, one on top of the other. Their flesh, their blood, and their bones all melting on each other. You wouldn't know the woman from the man, or even the child. Piles of flesh on the bed, and lots of people screaming and crying, not knowing where their kids are, their men or their women. That night, I came home from the hospital and was awake till morning from fear. I thought that it would only be that night that I couldn't sleep. But till today, I see them in front of me. And I can't sleep.
Fatima Abu Hashem, born 1996, aged 14, Al Jalat Street. When I talk to Palestinian kids in Europe, I feel sorry for them. And I don't wish to be like them, because they're in diaspora. They plant their dreams in a land that's not theirs. Dreams grow with the people and the country. I love life, love to play and love people. I wish I could be the president of Palestine for one day so I can enrich love and peace between people, end the hatred and spite in their hearts, and end the internal division. This would be my first presidential decision, but unfortunately, I'm not the president, and that's why there was a war. The war opened up with bombing like rain. We came running out of school in fear and found the whole world running in the streets. People were looking for their sons and sisters and mothers. Everyone was running with their heads raised to the sky. Honestly, they looked strange. I saw one of them from a distance wearing
pyjamas, barefoot and running. And when I first saw her, I didn't recognise her. But when I got close to her, wow, that's my uncle's wife. The chic one who doesn't leave the house without looking top-notch. That's when I was sure the war had started. It's been more than a year since we've been talking about the war. We lived it and continue to live it each day in detail. Because the TV, the phone, the doorbell are all things that remind me of the war, and I don't like them. You know, I even threw away my mobile. And I'm most scared of being alone. I think, what would I do if a war starts and I'm alone? Who will protect me? And when I'm with the family, I start to think how I will protect them. I had a big dream to become an actress, but this dream started shrinking slowly because people in my country don't look at an actress in a positive way, even though acting is important and it allows me to relay the picture of suffering of my country and society to the world. I have a second dream, if the first doesn't work out, to be a journalist. And the third dream is to make a family that I love and who love me. The fourth is for us to be free and for the flag of Palestine to fly freely. And the fifth is to see people happy, without death, destruction, deprivation or war. And the sixth and last is for me to finish this monologue and come down from the stage.
Mahmoud Abu Shaban, born 1996 in Al Ramal, age 14. You're going to call me crazy, nuts, cuckoo, go ahead, I don't care, doesn't matter to me anymore. In truth, what's happening with me is not normal. I mean, losing trust in my friends is normal. Lots of people have lost trust in others. But what's driving me crazy is that I've lost my trust in shop windows and in cars and in police spaces and suspicious areas. In my personal philosophy, all of Gaza is a suspicious area. To make a long story short, everything that was hit in the war, I'm scared of going near today. I don't know how to walk down the street. I'll be walking down the right hand side and get scared. And then I'll move on to the left hand side and I'll be scared there too. So I'll go back to the right and I'll stay in that whirlwind. Where am I supposed to walk? In the middle of the street? See, on the first day of the war, I was in my brother's shop that sells computers and mobile phone accessories. A medal fell on the floor and my brother told me to hang it up. Suddenly, while hanging it up, I heard the sound of rockets and the glass fell on me and it injured me. I was scared. And I wasn't scared for myself, but for my brother. He was injured too. He was worried about our family. He told me, go up to the house and make sure they're okay. I went up the stairs. I wasn't scared. I made sure that they were all right, and they were fine, thank God. I walked up the street to find out where the explosion had happened. We'd had a lot of explosions. Gaza became like a black night because of all the smoke. But still, I wasn't scared. I forgot to tell you that my brother had a cup of tea in the first explosion, which fell from his hand and broke. Do you think that was because of fear?
Yasmin Jabu, born 1996, age 14, Al-Daraj. Our future in Gaza is obscure and unknown, like a calm volcano that can erupt at any second, as if we're on a boat without a captain, in the midst of a raging sea. We go right and left, no one knows where to lead. I hear that in other countries, childhood is sacred, and children live their lives without problems and fear. But Gaza's children are forgotten and outside the picture. They're the ones that feel the injustice the most, because society treats them as if they're not kids. When it wants, it makes them adults, and then when it wants, it returns them as children. And most of them deal with them as if they're not bodies, just minds. When I see a child peddling in the street or working in a shop, I imagine how the children of the world are playing, resting, and feeling safe. Honestly, my heart breaks for them, and sometimes I cry. Gaza has no tenderness, no childhood. A boy is born a man here, and a girl is born a bride. Dad before the war was a lot more tender with me. I wish he would take me in his arms like before. But God help him, because he's probably worried too. Because in the war, we lost 5 dominions of land in a second. The field that is 60 years old was hit by a rocket from the Israeli army, which burned all the oranges in it. My father, my brother, and myself could have also died by that rocket because we were close to the window. If my dad hadn't thrown me on the ground, all the shrapnel would have hit me. After the war, I visit the Rafah crossing and I saw the flags of Palestine and Egypt next to each other, yet separated by a wire. I felt the difference between the two flags and that wire is a border of this big prison that we live in. I felt how stupid and unjust the world, and I felt like breaking all borders and ending the differences between races, religions, so that everyone in this world would be brothers. My dream became to live in a safe country, even in a small village, in a distant island at the end of the world.
I was just looking for my red book. Well, who knows where I've put that. That is all of the monologues that we have selected. There are 34 in total, and these were the ones we selected. They're all worth reading, and we'll make those available. We got information from Ashtar Theatre who in the last few days sent us updates on the writers of the monologues from about 2 months ago. So if they knew whereabouts they were, they've shared that with us, and we thought it'd be worth sharing with you now.
I think they're just the most recent updates.
The most, yeah.
So, and they've only been shared with people performing the Gaza Monologues in the last couple of days. So some of them may well be from much more recently than 2 months.
Sure.
Yeah, Mohammed, whose monologue I read, he is now a working actor in Morocco.
Sir Jude moved abroad. There's been no further news.
Hannah Healy is in Gaza. She's a dentist, and she was just married 2 months before the war broke out.
Ali Al-Hassani, he's currently in Poland doing a PhD.
There is no news on him. We'am El Diari died in Ramallah 3 years ago.
Tamir was last known to be in Gaza in the south.
Ahmad Taha owns a shop. No news.
Fatima Abu Hashem in Gaza, no news.
Mahmoud lost all of his friends and family.
Yasin, who I read, it lives in Belgium now.
Thank you all. Before we just show our appreciation for everyone who helped, Ashtar Theatre they waived the rights for the writing of this, and asked that rather than paying for the rights, that we ask audience to donate. They're doing a programme in Palestine, using theatre and drama to help young people in Palestine. So there is a global giving page that we will send donations. So Martin has got a card reader, so we can take donations for that. We'll also, the stream that is on YouTube, that will be available to watch as well, and the link for the donations will be attached to that. Just want to thank all of our performers, our videographer and team, and everyone that helped behind the scenes to put this together, and Ashtar Theatre for their writing and resilience. We will be sitting and drinking tea. Be lovely if anyone wants to stay with us and drink some tea and talk. And we're theatre artists, and yeah, this is what we do, and the like hopelessness it feels sometimes, and wanting to do something, and this is the thing that we do, and as small as it is, whatever it is that you do, and I know that some of you do the thing you do. Keep doing the thing you do. And if you haven't yet found it, keep looking for the thing that you can do. Because it's in our thousands, in our millions.
Palestinians.